Okay, hello. Thank you, Jenna. My name is Barbara Partridge, and I am a TRC committee member, and I would like to welcome you all to the lunch hour faculty presentation portion on the final afternoon of the TRC gathering. So the purpose of the faculty presentations is to hear from faculty members themselves on how they are incorporating the calls to action in the work that they do. So please join me as I introduce our speakers. As Jenna had said, there's Ramona Neckoway, Associate Professor, Director for the Center of Aboriginal Languages and Culture, Thompson Campus. We also have Keith Hyde, Associate Professor for the Faculty of Arts, Business and Science, the PA Campus. And we have Brenda Firman, Associate Professor for the Keenanow Bachelor of Education program at the Thompson Campus. So just a friendly reminder that if you have questions for the presenters, you can post them in the chat. After all three are finished, I will go to the chat box and direct a question to the designated presenter. So we will begin with Ramona Neckoway, Director for the Center for Aboriginal Languages and Culture. Ramona?
Barb, I think we're just going to start with Keith first.
Okay, all right. Hi, Keith.
Hey, Barbara.
You ready?
Yeah, I did have a little PowerPoint, so should I try sharing my screen? Okay. All right, I'll just see if I can get this going for everyone here. And let me see. Okay, can everyone see the PowerPoint? Okay, thanks, Barb. Excellent. Good morning and tawau to all of you. I wish to acknowledge the elders and the knowledge keepers in attendance today. Let me also acknowledge that UCN and its employees are grateful to be invited guests on the traditional territories of the Muskegowik and Inuit or Swampy Cree people who signed Treaty Number 5. We also have regional centers on the traditional territories of the Dene, the Saulteaux, the Oji-Cree, the Anishinaabe, and the Métis nations. And finally, thank you to the organizers of the 2021 UCN Truth and Reconciliation Conference. Big thanks to Melanie for inviting me to speak on my research and how it relates to the ongoing work of reconciliation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Keith Hyde, and I am a settler scholar who grew up here in the PA. After going away for university, I returned and I've been working with UCN teaching English literature and religious studies in the Faculty of Arts, Business and Science for the last 10 years. Together with my wife, Dr. Kara Mandrick, we have spent the last 3 years transcribing the unpublished Church Missionary Society journals of Cree missionary and educator, the Reverend Henry Budd Sr. Now, hopefully you can all see this picture. It's one of the few pictures we have of the Reverend Henry Budd. And if we were in a class situation, I'd be getting your feedback. What do we see when we look at Henry Budd? Just give you a couple of seconds to look at that portrait. And then I'll ask you to tell or to think about what you see when you look at this portrait of the Reverend Henry Budd Sr. This painting, by the way, is by a local artist, Theo Head of the Moose Lake, for those of you familiar with his work. Now, a little boy named Sakajawaskum, Cree for going up the hill, was born in Norway House around 1810. In 1820, his mother, Washi Suikwa, or she went by the English names Agathis or Mary Hawking Cook, granted consent for her son to travel to the Red River settlement. He would join the first school, which was being established by the Reverend John West. West was the first Hudson's Bay Company chaplain to Rupert's Land. 2 years later, Sakajawaskum was baptized and renamed Henry Budd after one of West's Anglican colleagues back in England. After he finished school, Henry Budd worked for the Hudson's Bay Company. He farmed, and then he served as a schoolmaster. He himself, his wife Betsy, and his mother were sent forth by the Church Missionary Society, or the CMS, to establish a mission station and school near Cumberland House in June of 1840. Because of conflict with the company, he founded the mission near the convergence of the Pasqua and Saskatchewan rivers. This was a traditional campsite used for thousands of years by Cree people as they awaited the opening of the trapping season in winter. Bud and his family would spend the next 35 years ministering in both Cree and English in the region of the UCN and at Neckoway, which is currently James Smith Cree Nation in Saskatchewan. After a bout of influenza, Bud died at the Devon Mission in the PA on April 2nd of 1875. He was in his early to mid-60s. Henry Budd played a crucial role in the founding, settlement, and education of what would become the Opaskwayak Cree Nation. His travels and teachings encompassed people from various communities, including Fort Carlton, Saskatchewan, Cumberland House, Fort Alicorn, Paw Mountain, Moose Lake, Norway House, and Grand Rapids. In addition to establishing the first Anglican inland mission beyond the Red River settlement, Bud's legacy includes tremendous contributions to translating the Bible, hymns, and the Book of Common Prayer into Cree. He also taught literacy to hundreds of Northerners and became the first Indigenous man to be ordained a full Anglican priest in North America. On December 22nd of 1850, Bud was ordained a deacon by David Anderson, the first bishop of Rupert's Land. For the next 25 years, he would write letters and journals to his supervisors at the CMS, an Anglican evangelical organization in England dedicated to international missions. Although there are several missing gaps in the journals due to CMS editors' carelessness, personal depression experienced by Bud, and/or loss of papers during transportation, his journals from this 25-year span provide extensive information on our region, on the lifestyles of the Swampy Cree people, on interactions with the Hudson's Bay Company, and early settlement patterns. As well, Bud records the names and dates of family members through baptismal, marriage, and burial registries. I hope that publishing the journals will provide a community chronicle from the period of 1850 to 1870, where there are few documents from our area. As well, I hope it will further encourage research by Indigenous and non-Indigenous scholars. Because he was a fluent Cree speaker, Bud's transliterations of the names of Cree people, places, and conversations have a high degree of accuracy compared to records by European contemporaries. Bud was a highly intelligent and educated man with his feet in two worlds. He was both a fervent Victorian evangelical and a proud Cree speaker. He was trained by English missionaries in the first school at the Red River settlement, and he also faced racial discrimination and hostility while striving to lead Cree people into overlapping patterns of both Christian faith and Western civilization. Although he worked as hard as any European missionaries, he only received half of the pay for much of his career. I want to show you a couple of slides and just ask the question, how do we remember Henry Budd? So the slide you're looking at now comes from stained glass windows in the St. John's Cathedral, which is in the Rupert's Land Diocese in Winnipeg. And you can see a close-up of Henry Budd. He's kind of perched on the top of the group of gentlemen in the left-hand pane of glass you can see. And I want you then to contrast this remembrance of Budd with something a little closer to home. This is a deer hide portrayal of the Reverend Henry Budd, which hangs on the wall of Christ Church here in the PA. Now, for many Indigenous people living in the shadows of the residential school scandals and the systemic racism of colonialism, Budd's legacy is very troubling. He frequently equated European ways and technology with quote-unquote civilization. He sought to usher his fellow countrymen into permanent housing and agricultural life in villages. He strove to replace Indigenous spiritual beliefs and ceremony with the Christian faith. And he also taught his students at the mission school to read and write in English. But there is more to the story. Bud personally witnessed the suffering that ensued from seasonal starvation, from the overhunting of big game animals in the greed and wake of the fur trade. He criticized the fur traders for poisoning people's lives with alcohol. He used what little medicine he had when facing the epidemics of Western diseases, whose devastation he blamed on living in drafty tents and sleeping on cold ground. And in his schools, Bud always instructed all of his students to read and write in Cree first, in their heart language, before he would teach them English. Children were allowed to take their study books home so they could read to their parents and teach syllabics to the older generation. Bud used his connections to supply everything from fishing hooks and twine to clothing and daily allotments of fish for students in the winter months when food was scarce. In closing, I want to just share a little story with you and just pop up a map here of the Neckoway station. You can see the little red arrow here marking it, and you can see where James Smith First Nation is currently located. This is about 60 kilometers east of Prince Albert. 2 years ago, I was contacted by a Métis man from Saskatchewan named Dave Rondeau, who was searching for the location of the Neckoway mission. The mission was built by Bud in 1850 and 51 on the north bank of the Saskatchewan River, across from Fort Alicorn. Mr. Rondeau had partnered with some archaeology students from University of Saskatchewan. They had cleared the area of brush and uncovered a series of graves and building foundations using ground-penetrating radar technology. And I just want to thank Mr. Rondeau. This is an image that he actually sent to me. You can see an aerial shot of the site, very overgrown, but all of the little markers are areas of interest for the archaeology team. At Mr. Rondeau's request, he asked me to basically go through Bud's journals and try to provide any information I could for what they were finding on the site. And then community members and even some of Bud's own descendants went to the site and placed markers on the graves. The story was written up in an article called "We Just Didn't Know Where It Was" by reporter Kelly Firman in the January 30th, 2021 edition of the Prince Albert Daily Herald. This is just one exciting example of how community members, family members, researchers, and old documents like those written by the Reverend Henry Budd can come together to uncover some of the untold stories from the past of those who have gone before us, and to share some of the forgotten contributions of Indigenous peoples who were too often overlooked and marginalized in the educational histories of Canada. Addressing some of these educational barriers helps to fulfill the 63rd of the TRC's 94 calls to action. Quote, "We call upon the Council of Ministers of Education Canada to maintain an annual commitment to Aboriginal educational issues." Thank you, and Ekwese.
Hi, Keith. Thank you. That was very informative. Okay, so I believe we have Ramona ready for her presentation.
I do. I am here, and my internet is a little bit unstable. So just to give you a heads up, if I disconnect, I'll find another way to call back in. But I just wanted to let you know, just in case for some reason I lose my screen. So with that, I'd like to say dance it to everybody. I hope everybody is doing well today. And as noted earlier, my name is Ramona Neckoway. I'm from the Neckoway Cree Nation, which is just a little ways away from our Thompson campus, which is where I am based out of. I want to begin by acknowledging that UCN and its campuses in the Pond Thompson are located in Treaty 5 territory, along with the regional centers. These are the traditional territories for many Indigenous peoples whose relationship to the land creates a rich heritage for our Northern learning community. I also want to acknowledge the elders, language keepers, knowledge keepers, UCN staff and students, and thank the conference organizers for giving me an opportunity to talk about some of the exciting work we are embarking on at our Center for Aboriginal Languages and Culture, which is CALC for short. So, for many of you that don't know me, I'm new to this role that I now occupy, but bring with me a zest and a passion for Indigenous languages and culture. The legacy of colonialism and the onslaught of policies, which has had great impacts to our individual and collective identities as Indigenous peoples, and our connections to our lands, our stories, our families, and our communities runs deep. I speak to you today as someone who is not a fluent language speaker, but a pretty good eavesdropper. And, you know, being a pretty good eavesdropper is a skill that has taken years to learn. But I am aware of the importance of language, land, and our stories. In this new role as a director of CALC, I've been inspired by the vision of those who came before us. Early leaders and the elders recognized the role and importance of language and culture, and the importance these would play in the pathway or on our pathways to decolonization. At CALC, our goal is to provide opportunities and pathways towards cultural reclamation and revitalization through our stories, our languages, and cultural practices, and through experiences on the land. A key focus of the work that we're hoping to do at CALC, or that we aim to do at CALC, will center on providing opportunities and pathways through culturally meaningful and a culturally rich lens. So among the initiatives that we're embarking on in CALC, we seek to create and offer culturally informed resources that will help students and others learn Indigenous languages, but at the same time gain important cultural insights and insights into the philosophies informing our languages. I've spent a number of years undertaking oral history research, and I'm excited to begin this work, but it needs to be undertaken in an ethical way that is shaped and guided by knowledge keepers, elders, and cultural experts. This work must also be grounded in an Indigenous ethic so that we can share some of what has been lost in a good way. At CALC, we aim to carry out development of language resources, as I said a couple of minutes ago, but we also seek to develop language courses and programming, and including moving forward with a Cree language minor in collaboration with the ANS department. We also aim to train and mentor students who may be interested in oral history work. And we hope to equip them with the ability to undertake and carry out various types of research in the community and in various frameworks and formats. So an integral component of the work that we do requires a working together and seeking out innovative collaborations. And so we've already begun embarking on this critical piece and are excited to move forward with this particular element or aspect of the work that we do. And as a researcher, I know that collaborations, when done in a good way, can yield positive results. As someone who's embarked on years of what seems like salvage research, foraging for bits and pieces of important and key histories and stories, I know that now is the time to offer tobacco and listen. In terms of some of the work that we're doing, again, we've already are moving towards creating this inclusive space for CALC, and again, to develop language and cultural resources, potentially some land-based learning opportunities as well, where we do have the opportunity to bring out and carry forward some of the philosophies and teachings in the language. And so this is something that I'm super excited to be a part of at KELC. And again, the goal is to work closely with community, with elders, with knowledge keepers, and with students to help train and mentor where applicable. So, greetings from KELC. Again, this is exciting work and something that I'm very happy to be a part of at UCN. And again, I'm new to this role. So beyond that, I don't have much more to share, but we are, I'm excited to get going on some of the work that I'm hoping we can do in the years to come. So with that, I want to thank you for listening to me. And if you have any questions or would like to reach out to us at KELC, we can share information with the conference organizers. We can also be reached through the Faculty of Arts, Business and Science, or FABS. And that's it for us. Thank you for listening. And I'm glad the internet cooperated.
Thank you, Ramona. Okay, we will move to our next presenter, Brenda Firman. Brenda, are you ready?
Okay, I just unmuted. I wouldn't say I'm ready, but I'll go. I'm a little bit
Okay.
technologically challenged, so bear with me. I just want to acknowledge, I can't do something and speak at the same time anymore. I'm just getting too old. So is that share screen showing? Okay.
Yes.
It's been a great day again today, and I wasn't able to take in everything. But was okay with that because I know it will all be recorded and will be available on site. So I'm really happy for that because there is so much good information and useful things for UCN as we move forward to really getting strong and solid, using some of our gains, some of what we've learned that can be challenges in this forward movement, and looking to the past. So I'm excited about that. I want to thank my co-faculty there. I've worked with Keith before, and especially around initiatives that can support elders and elder knowledge, and also acknowledge his research and presentation as a secular scholar, which I am not, even though I may look like I'm supposed to be. And it reminds me of work that Negan Sinclair talks of in a similar vein, the story behind that shows the strength of and the purpose of these Indigenous people who began with the church and use those efforts to support their own community and their own language and the written language and things like that. So it's good that these stories are coming out. And I think that's an example of, for Keith, that recognition of the privilege and using that in a good way, and an example of how secular scholars can be strong allies in this way. And nice to hear from you, Ramona. I knew of you, but we've never connected. And along the years, Kina now has done it, has worked a lot with KELC, some initiatives that worked, some that didn't work, and it's good to see and to hear about your efforts. So I hope we have opportunity to work together on some things and see how we can support each other in that way, because the work of KELC is very close philosophically to our Kina Now program, as you are likely aware. I haven't done the land acknowledgement, For myself, we have lived the land acknowledgement, and I realize in my thinking during today that this has been going on for a very long time for me, and I learned about it many years back. The land, the connection with the land, the important role that plays through being on remote reserve in Northwestern Ontario and supporting the language being a language of instruction in the schools many years before it became as prevalent as it is today, which is good to see. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit as I talk about Kina now. So also, you know, I won't be speaking directly to how our program has been responding to the calls for action, because the response began before the calls for action. So much of what we do and have done through the vision of the elders and the support of the elders and through our land-based focus speaks to all of those things in the calls for action. And in a much lengthier presentation, I could do that academic connection between the two. I'm not going to do that piece. I'll just try to tell a few things about Kina now, and it's been difficult to prepare in a scholarly way, because with the length of time I've had in the program and with my sorry, I knew this would happen. I live with my great-grandchildren, my Japan. Susie, can you go find Kyla? Okay. Go look, Kyla's there. So I knew this would happen as soon as I got on screen. But okay, sweetie. All right. Look for Kyla. I asked her to help you, okay? Thank you. That emotional connection is always more important than any of our academic work, and needs to fuel our work and also be a part of what we do. So I won't apologize, but thank you for allowing for that. Yeah, so the Kina now vision, and I've got on screen sort of the visual for it, which is any translated into English academic format, of course, does not do justice to the vision. The vision is in the stories. The vision is in the actualization. The vision is in the relationships with people, with land, with culture, with language, with all of that, and with the small human beings who grow up in our formalized education system, and the impact that we have been charged with having as we educate teachers within the Bachelor of Education program. So I'm not going to read it to you. I know everybody can read. And there's, of course, descriptions of this in the slides that I'm going to go to later. There'll be a CRE model. And one of the things that a few years back the elders did was look at representing that all in Cree, and as many of you may know or have heard people say, the meaning does not come across well in translation. And so that has been a process that they have worked at. Still, it has given us a strength for our vision. And when we first started the program in 2008, some time had been given. And when I say it's important to realize that the elders who were involved in the visioning or the model are not the Council of Elders. And that's something that doesn't come across clearly within what's on the UCN website. So they are referenced in the at the bottom, and two of them are actually on the Council of Elders as well, hence some of the confusion. And yeah, the Council of Elders does obviously support this vision also. So in the beginning, we were trained by the elders. And for myself, all of that and all of my prior experience, I think in terms of academic responsibility rather than academic freedom. And for me, that's a very important difference, and perhaps encapsulates in some ways our journey, current journey, in terms of having impact on the system as a whole, not just ourselves individually, so that we can come from that kind of perspective. So within that responsibility, the elders had many meetings, and I read through the minutes from those meetings to also gain guidance as to what to do. And an example from that is that they spoke about the need for the students in their training to have exposure to the beginning of the year. Because so much of when they go into the schools is later on in the year when things are already set in the classroom. And then they go out as teachers in September, never having actually visualized startup. And so with that in mind, I, as we were setting up the practicum, one of the practicum was set up to actually begin in the fall and to be there at startup to hopefully connect with their cooperating teacher and help set up the room, to be there for the first week so they're part of the school startup, and to attend at their placement 1 day a week until they did their 4-week block later. So that's a way that this wisdom from the elders in terms of what's needed was translated into programming. So Kina now is about all of us who are here. So what my remarks are going to be specific to the Thompson Campus program and faculty who have been in that program, because we are all of us who are here. And so it is our responsibility, and the environment and the school district we're involved in, the land around us and the communities around us, that's part of all of us who are here. And in different UCN spaces where the program is, it's a different all of us who are here, who will bring out their own versions of responsibility to this, to what the elders have given us as a vision and a guideline as we move in our educating of future teachers. I'm going to, so I have pictures. I just have to figure out how I'm going to do this. Sorry. So it'll take a second. So the pictures tell stories, and there is not time to do justice to any of the stories. So I will be defaulting to just mentioning a few of the details with behind the pictures. And this is only a small segment of pictures, mainly from the earlier years in the program. Couldn't find the ones from later years. I know they are on the USB somewhere. So it's through relationships that we begin growing, the all of us. And we started out, I was so fortunate to start in Thompson with Elder Buddy Loy. And we were a good duo together. There he is with the late Wellington and the late Albert. And that picture in particular encapsulates Kina now for me. Buddy would tell his stories. We shared an office. in the old UCN, and I would listen, and I would make connections to possibilities within the more formal academic program plan and course plans, and then talk back and say, what do you think? Could we perhaps do this? Would this perhaps be a way of bringing that out in this specific course? Things like this. And we go back and forth together and make things happen. Buddy was on the ground. I always was put myself in the background. I can remember a time when we went to NCN to talk to the chief and council about things on their land that we wanted to do. And Buddy, of course, says, you first. No, you first, please. You please be the face that enters. And of course, he knew people from there because he's been all over northern Manitoba. And that's the relationship. And that's the standing back so that I can help and support and use my skills in those ways, but that the people of the land, the Indigenous people, the people with that experience and knowledge are leading the way. So as I said, we acknowledge the land through our actions that build relationships with both the land and the people of the land. And that's what we were able to do in Kinanow and Thompson, particularly because of Buddy. I know that Laura spoke of the resources of the IK Center in Thompson. There's Mervyn and one of our students on Mile 20 with the teepees. This is something that has been very instrumental as our program began and continues to be. We worked with the late Leslie Turner. He would actually, which I didn't know at the time, was the person who put the elders' words into that diagram that I showed earlier. And it was through him and his wife, who works in the local school district, that we got connections with Loretta Daikun and Ron Cook, who were working at the school district doing the land-based and cultural and language things together. There they are. Isn't that good timing? As a result of this, and because of connections with the late Madeline and Wellington Spence on the Elders Council, Mile 20 being their traditional area, it has several other names, but we still default to Mile 20 most of the time. We became connected there, and as part of our fall offering to the students, we would go out on the land, usually during September. The first time we went, it was Buddy and I took the students alone. After that, we were connected with the school district, and through our joint relationship, we're able to assist and support each other in this land-based learning being a critical part of life. There's our first graduates 2 years into the program, and we had a ceremony. Yeah.
We can't see the photos that you're referring to. There's comments in the chat box. They're like, we can't see the photos.
Okay, I wonder why not. Just a sec, let me see if I can do something. Here I am looking at them, thinking everybody's got them.
Brenda,
What can
you'll
you
have
see?
you'll have to, oh, Nick said to double click on it, or you have to reshare the screen again. It's Sarah
Okay.
here.
Okay, I'll do that. Sorry about that. I'll do a reshare. Gotta find them. Oh, I know. Is that what you're seeing? Just that? And when I go to slideshow, it doesn't work?
What we're seeing is just like a big like rows and rows of photos.
Right. And then I go to that and I press slideshow.
Try double click, Brenda,
Okay, just a second.
on the
It's telling me it's
slideshow.
already running and
Oh, okay, minimize that screen maybe.
Share the difference, the screen where the slideshow is, Brenda?
okay, let me see. Okay, have we got the screen? So if I double click slideshow, do you think that's what does it? Are you seeing them?
No, we're not. Do you have it open on your screen, Brenda?
Yeah, it's showing on my screen. It says that
Okay.
I'm sharing. It says I'm
Okay.
screen sharing and this is my screen.
Yeah, can you stop screen sharing, and when you go back to share your screen, you should see the slideshow. Do you see the slideshow picture option to click on it?
Yeah, you stop sharing. When you click share, what do you see on your pop-up menu?
Do
Do you
you see the slideshow?
Are you seeing
There
it
we
now?
go. Perfect, Brenda. Great job.
Sorry, I had no idea because it's showing as if it's showing on mine. So sorry about that. So yeah, enjoy. There's Wellington and Buddy and Albert at mile 20. So I know that there's not too much longer, so I don't want to go beyond people's group break. So I'm just going to mention a few of the things that we've been able to do through mile 20. So mile 20, we go out for a week. The students help set up camp. Then the grade 5 students from various schools in Thompson come out for a day. And our students are camp helpers, elders helpers. They take responsibility for the groups of children and take them around. So it's kind of like there's several different workshop spaces. There's always bannock making, storytelling, TP, drumming, setting up a TP, different things that are a walkthrough to learn about mile 20. Many fasts happen there. Different activities, and some of them are core and other ones we bring in. Medicine walks, teachings, different things like that. Our students stay overnight if they're able to. They're invited to bring family and kids after the day or even during the day if they need to. Sometimes their own kids are there in the classrooms anyway that come out. And then we break camp on the Friday. So this is traditionally our mile 20 experience. As we moved along, Loretta Daikun with the school district said, you know, your students should have an opportunity for their own learning too out here. So instead of having the grade 5 students out every day, we started having an adult day as well as part of the week. And so 2 days of students, 1 day of adult, and a put up and take down day. Along the way, then we started to include at their request the early childhood education students, and some of this may have come up in Laura's presentation. At first, it was the faculty started helping. Sometimes they came and they took stuff and helped prepare stuff back. And their involvement got stronger and stronger. And as we instituted the adult day, then the ECE students came to that as well. And more recently, the adult education students have come to that as well. And that just got going before COVID. So it hasn't had a chance to grow further, but it was very successful. More recently, again, prior to COVID, the ECE students started staying for the week as well. Not overnight usually, but they would participate during the days that there's Ron and Loretta, the days that the students came out. And this helped us to expand and deepen the learning experience for our students. ECE experience was already expanding by being a part of the program delivery and camp support. So this has been really strong and been growing and continue to grow more. The other aspect of MAL 20, it has been the place in Thompson where day 2 of the cultural proficiency has taken place. Cultural proficiency has not been active, at least from UCN in the last couple of years, but it was active for a number of years. And our students are very involved with that, often do workshops in it, add support to it, and have the chance to join in on cultural proficiency days too, depending on numbers and needs and what we need of them. That's the picture I said was our first grad cohort. We had a ceremony in at MAL 20. That's what we'd been to the band office to ask about at NCN. Prior to their ceremony, formal ceremony at UCN. Our students still, prior to COVID, were involved with cultural proficiency, even though UCN was not doing it, because people involved in it have moved on to other places, and those places have asked, there's the Cree of the diagram, have asked for it to be included in what's offered to their staff, and our students are often seen as a resource. If they're not involved as a whole from our program, depending on dynamics of how it works out, then usually several students will be asked to be part of the support there, and we'll get some kind of honorarium for doing that. We've also even done the blanket exercise out at MAL 20, which is an interesting endeavor. Mention was made of getting in touch with yourself and learning to understand your strengths and weaknesses. And this is definitely something that happens for everyone through their land-based experiences at MAL 20. We have other land-based experiences also. This is the FAST program, which I'll mention later. When we've had a cohort in Neckoway House being taught by Thompson faculty, we went to see Falls there, and our students from Thompson went there. This was before we were fully involved with MAL 20 with the school district. So our students went there, and our Neckoway House students went there and had a week of camp. There's a picture from the Neckoway House camp. They've also, in Thompson, been to the Boy Scout camp, which is a different land-based experience that the school district does in the late winter. So we bring these experiences into our courses, and other land-based experiences come into our courses as well, such as assisting the school district with their mini winter fest. My colleague Mervyn does a lot with land-based within Aboriginal perspectives and his sustainable development and connecting with social studies methods. A former Thompson faculty, Jennifer Davis, taught the sport and wellness course, and students were out on the land doing different things. That was a picture of the canoe there, so that was what one student chose to do, and the students had their own choice about that, what they were doing. Through their practicum experiences, we do our best to have them involved at some point in one of their practica with teachers in the district who are solid in their in including land-based as part of their teaching within their classrooms. Over the years, we've done a number of other things that I think, oh yeah, here's another a former faculty in Thompson, and who brought her tradition of the wall tent. In an elective course, the students actually sewed the tent. She brought her auntie over to help, and then they put up the tent outside UCN, and lots of staff from UCN came and visited too later in the day. So this was again getting course credit through land-based education, and if we want them to be doing that in the schools, then we need to be doing it with them and modeling that for them as we teach. So this is inside the tent after it's been put together. So a part of what we do is reach out. Again, that's within the calls to action, that connection with community. So lots of things locally with the school district. It goes way beyond asking them to take our students for practicum. They made a cake and they made a wall tent. That's how enthusiastic the students were about all this. And some of these students here are from NCN, and of course they have their land-based cabin, and I'm sure the program is much extended since I was involved. And they were so happy to be doing this, and they had such strengths to take with them as they return to their community as teachers. We've become involved within communities. So within the Norway House program, when our Thompson faculty taught into that, myself in Oxford House, big stories there and not really time to go into them. So I became a major faculty for that. And that was part, again, of the vision of the elders. As they were visioning this program, they were thinking of their communities and their community, having community-based programs and how it would support there. So that was one of the aspects I worked at in Oxford House. We made many presentations, sometimes by faculty alone, more often in cohorts. So presentations with the elders, supporting and setting up for the elders to go solo, faculty with students, students with their CTs, students going solo. And it's sad that Murren no longer exists, as that was a major venue for presentations because they could present locally. We share and collaborate with school admin, with teachers, with chief and council, within UCN, as I've mentioned, with ECE and adult ed, and with FAPS. Once the cultural proficiency land-based got going and MERV's knowledge and skills got known within faculty, then a FAPS instructor asked him to share his TP teachings to his students, and word got around, and there were so many people who wanted to be part of it that the venue was moved. And I believe a video was made, but I haven't seen that. But that's part of the outreach and spreading out who all of us are. In research, the Cree term as expressed to me by an elder means looking back to where we got lost, which is a very different conceptualization of research than the mainstream scholar approach. And so there has been, again, faculty research connected to Keenanow and land-based, research with faculty and students, research with faculty and elders, or elders alone with faculty support, and elders with other support. We're involved in a multi-year voice project, which was focused around, especially around land-based, was one of the efforts, and that provided a lot of impetus for programs in the school district and in communities to grow that agenda for themselves. Obviously, we're very involved with elders, less so more recently, and it's been really hard under COVID, but especially at MAL 20, but also bringing them in for Keenanow teachings, for storytelling, and for visioning courses and being instructors for those courses. Although under UCN protocols, my name had to be on it, even though the elder was the person doing it. So we prepare students by exposing them to traditional knowledge, spiritual practice, medicines, drum making, rattle making, beading, TP teaching, Aboriginal languages. We include the idea of service in our coursework and course delivery, such as the mini winter fest, family support for reading. When Buddy was teaching in Norway House, as part of one course, he had the student going around into the families and helping the families and students, the kids in the classrooms, to advance their reading skills. The Families and Schools Together program is a major portion of one of our courses, and involved in school land-based activities for support. We look at social emotional learning, have resiliency workshops, anxiety prevention, suicide prevention, share some of those trainings with the district, as is our responsibility as a post-sec in the north, and have the students take the work from those trainings into their work in the classroom quite successfully. We expose our students to external resources. Here, our students are part of a Cree language workshop that was done locally in Thompson. Yeah, long story there. So the book that you saw, that was an author visits. Larry Loy is Buddy Loy's brother, the late Larry Loy, and he came and spoke to them about his book and about how it came about, and they then wrote their own books. Our camps, we sent students to Truth and Reconciliation conference when it was in Winnipeg. We've sent them to forest schools. We look around for opportunities outside of us and outside of the academy to help enrich the experience for our students. And
Hey,
again,
Brenda.
model
Brenda?
that for the students. And it's time I should finish.
Yeah, Brenda, we love the work that Kina now is doing, and I know we could sit here with you for hours and hours and all day tomorrow and next week and all that. However, we do have a book reading that's going to be is scheduled for lunch hour as well. And also, there was a question for Keith here that I wanted to pose and give him a opportunity to answer. So thank you very much, Brenda, for your lovely pictures and your lovely presentation. And again, on myself and I know UCN, we all appreciate what Kina now is doing in terms of indigenizing curriculum.
Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Okay, you're welcome. Keith, there was a question that was asked, and it was, what year did Reverend Henry Budd teach syllabics? So if you want to answer that, then.
Oh, sure. Well, it was in the 1840s when Westerners were really researching into the Cree language, and again, primarily, Christian ministers who wanted to start, publishing and translating materials in that. And of course, people from Norway House will recognize the name James Evans. He did a lot of work in kind of our particular area. It's a little harder question to answer with regards to Bud, because of course he was a native Cree speaker, and so this was his heart language. And we don't really know, what access he had to materials and resources in terms of the written, syllabic material. We just know that he was doing a lot of his own translation work, and sadly, a lot of it didn't actually get attributed to him. The first kind of English missionary who was sent here around 1844, James Hunter, he ended up sort of taking the credit and becoming sort of an English expert on Cree. So I would probably say safely in the 1850s, up until, of course, his death in 1875, he would have been, teaching with the syllabics.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Jenna. Just in case you guys are wondering why I kind of took over moderating, is because our moderator Barb got the boot for some reason. So I don't know. It wasn't me. I didn't kick her out. So I don't think any of the organizers kicked her out as well. But what I'll do now is I'll put the email addresses for Keith, Ramona, and Brenda in the chat box. So if anybody has any other further questions about their programs, their work, their research, their department, you can email them directly. And I think Jenna is probably kicking me out of the spotlight now and probably wants it back. So I'll hand the mic over back to Jenna. And I see Barb was let back in.